good to have you with us. Now, the Johannesburg Mayor, Phalatse, has met with Soweto residents earlier on today. This to respond to their grievances over service delivery issues. Residents took to the streets in June this year to highlight their frustrations over electricity cuts in particular. They are accusing the city of neglecting them. For more on this, I'm joined now by eNCA's Aviwe Mtila, who has an update on that meeting. So how did the meeting go? I mean, the march was quite spirited in June and quite heated, and then things were exacerbated by the failure, of a follow-up meeting when the mayor was indisposed. Finally, Soweto residents meeting with the mayor. How did that go?
Very heated in June, if you remember correctly. The anger towards the mayor, of course, over the service delivery woes of Soweto. At the core of them were the electricity crisis that many people around Soweto face. So today we were expecting those tempers to flare once more. But in fact, upon arrival and addressing the Soweto residents, the mayor, Phalatse, basically said that, in fact, she's on the side of Soweto residents. She has made numerous efforts, writing to even the Minister, Pravin Gordhan, in getting efforts to deal with the electricity crisis. So she's now promised, in fact, that if these accounts and all of these efforts aren't met within the next 14 days, she'll then lead a march to Eskom to get them addressed. In fact, let's take a listen to the Johannesburg Mayor, Phalatse.
Certainly, I can understand that my attempts to manage the city's relationship with Eskom and to afford it the time and space it needs have been misconstrued as an attempt to protect and shield Eskom from the residents. As much as you feel let down by Eskom, I must admit that I too am feeling let down. I would like to reassure you, the people of Soweto, of my and the multi-party government's support. You came to us for help, and I want you to know that we heard you loud and clear. We've listened to you, and we are here to say that if Eskom do not produce a concrete action plan with timelines, and if the minister does not respond to us in writing within the next 14 working days with a plan of action, I will personally lead a march with the residents to Eskom in efforts of getting an effective, timely solution.
So that's an interesting dynamic, is it not, Aviwe? Because it seems to me, from being on opposing sides earlier on in June to, almost now being on the same side against Eskom and other authorities, how was her message received by communities?
I guess the one thing that was really appreciated from Soweto residents was the mayor being on the ground and actually engaging them and hearing them out. In fact, what was promised, I understand, remember this memorandum of demands was sent through by Soweto Parliament. In speaking to Nhlanhla, he did mention that, never mind 14 days, on Monday they'll be headed to the power utility with at least 120 young people that will be demanding jobs as technicians, because they say that they can't be serviced by people from Pretoria, for example, that don't understand the challenges of Soweto. Another demand there would be the scrapping of the billions of rand of debt from Eskom. Just one of the three demands that are there. I'm just forgetting the last one, but let's take a listen to Nhlanhla and what he had to say.
If this meeting was a meeting that is held in Sentin, the CEO of Eskom, Tirete, would be here honoring the meeting. Instead, Tirete sends a black woman. Yes, it's a responsibility. But there's the serious thing in history that let them be divided and let them fight amongst ourselves. It will never happen under my leadership that this woman is going to be fought by her own people. The first thing we are doing on Monday, we are going to identify 3 young people from each ward. That's 3 times 42 wards in Soweto. Those young people are going to be taken by Eskom to be trained as technicians with immediate effect. I don't care about the capacity and the protocols. We are going to deliver these 100 plus, 4812, 120 plus young people from Soweto to be trained as technicians.
So, Aviwe, I'm interested to hear, though, if there are any solutions being suggested, for instance, by the mayor, to these long-standing issues around Soweto, particularly around issues of billing, but also issues of those bills that are not paid, even in instances where people can afford to pay, as a separate matter from those, who are indigents. It's just suggesting any solutions that are not being considered by ESCOM, for example, leading to this frustration where she is now, as to the extent of saying, if there's no response, in 14 days, I'm leading a march to ESCOM.
Well, that's her stance. She's taking the blame away, or any solutions that could be driven from her office away, and saying that we're even failing to engage ESCOM. So at this state, she's basically saying that our addresses to ESCOM haven't been met. So in the next 14 days, if they still continue not to be met, that's when then ESCOM will feel the wrath of not only the city of Johannesburg, but the community of Soweto. Another one that I now remember was around the flat rate, which the Soweto Parliament seems to suggest that they've actually agreed with the leadership that was there to have a 200 Rand flat rate. In fact, they're saying that they'll now be collecting from all those 42 wards that 200 Rand, and per month ESCOM will be receiving just around R1 billion from Soweto. It's something that they say they won't be compromising in, and will be paying that 200 Rand flat rate.
Lux says there's been an agreement on a 200 Rand flat rate for electricity in Soweto regardless of usage,
which they're unwavering about. They're saying that they now taking the stances and decisions on ESCOM's behalf, given that ESCOM is not engaging them in any sense. So they now will be collecting those 200 Rand. I understand there's some trust where they'll be collecting from the different wards, and it will amount to around R1 billion, which will then be paid to ESCOM per month. But the residents are expected to pay 200 Rand a flat
and the
rate.
collection will be done by Soweto Parliament.
There are different stakeholders, I understand. There are different leadership structures, and there's this trust where the money will be given into. It's not only by Soweto Parliament, but I'm assuming it's being led by Soweto Parliament.
All right, let's see how it unfolds in the coming weeks and months. eNCA senior journalist Aviwe Mtila there has been tracking the visit to Soweto. In fact, the engagement, not a visit, because, she works for the people of Soweto, does Phalatse. A meeting between the mayor and the communities in Soweto. You heard there the interesting suggestion of 200 Rand being the flat rate to be collected henceforth. Details are still being worked out, because as far as the residents are concerned, there's actually an agreement that that's going to be the flat rate. It will be interesting to hear other stakeholders, including ESCOM. Speaking of ESCOM,